So today I want to briefly talk about the consumption function and the macroeconomics and national income. So the consumption function by definition is simply a function that shows us the relationship between consumption expenditure and its determinants. Now the consumption function using the formula is given as C is equal to A plus CYD. So depending on the book you're using and your lecturer, these abbreviations can change, but we know that this C, we're talking about consumption. Now this A is talking about autonomous expenditure, all right? So this is autonomous expenditure. Then this small c right here shows us something that is called the MPC. I'll explain in a bit, the marginal propensity to consume, and this YD represents the disposable income. So I'll briefly talk about each and every one of these in different videos, but today I just want to focus on what is called the MPC. But to just briefly mention about all of them, when you look at autonomous expenditure, autonomous consumption is consumption that does not depend on the level of income. It is consumption that is not influenced by income. So with these two parts of consumption, we have this A and we have this CYD. We call this autonomous expenditure because it does not depend on the level of income. So when income is zero, our consumption will be equal to the consumption function. Then this C and the YD altogether, these two are known as induced consumption. So this is the part of consumption that is now influenced by income, meaning when income changes, consumption is going to change. But this one here, the autonomous, does not depend on the level of income. So, but today I want to briefly just talk about this part which determines the induced consumption, the MPC. So the MPC, all right, I believe we have all heard about tithe, okay? If you go to church or if you don't go to church, I believe that you have come across this term called tithe. Now, you know that tithe represents it's 10%, okay, that an individual is supposed to take to church of their income. So let's say, for example, you earn a 1,000 kwacha as your income. How do you calculate the tithe? To know how much you need to take, how much of a tithe you need to take to church, you need to calculate 10% of this income. And how do you do that? 10% we know, but we know that as a number, it's 10 divided by 100. Okay, so this is 10%, which is just equal to, when you say 100 into 10, it's just going to give us 0.1. So if you want to calculate how much tithe you have to take to church, you have to say 0.1, which is 10%, then you multiply it by the 1,000, and these should be able to give you 100. So you know that whenever you earn your income of 1,000, 100 kwacha, you take it where? To church as your tithe. Now, with that understanding, it should be easy for you to understand what this MPC is all about. Now, this MPC, the same way that we've calculated tithe is the same way that it is calculated. All right. But let me just do this then. So with that understanding of calculating tithe, we can now look at what the MPC shows us. So now there is a basic assumption in a two-sector economy, okay, that income, okay, your income, of which in economics we represent, it's represented by Y. Your income is either consumed or it is saved. By consumed, we meaning it is spent. S stands for saving. So your income is either consumed or it is saved, right? So whenever you have an income, you either consume it or you're going to save it. Now, I want to give you this simple example and you'll never forget what the MPC is. So since we know that income is either consumed or it is saved, let's say you have received a 1,000 kwacha, all right? Just the same way we had in our previous example. Now you decide, instead of calculating tithe, now you ask yourself, you know that this income, I can consume it or save it. Then you ask yourself, what percentage do I want to consume? Meaning, do I want to spend on goods and services? And what percent do I want to save up? So let's say you make up your mind, like me, who loves to do more of the saving than the spending. And you say, well, out of every income that I'm going to receive, I'm going to be spending, let's say 30%. Okay, so I'll be spending 30%. And the rest, obviously, since it's 100%, So if you're saving 30%, that means the other percentage is 70% that is remaining. And you decide that this one, I'm going to do what? To save. Then this one, I'm going to what? To spend. Meaning if we're to calculate out of your income, how much you're going to consume if you receive 1,000, you're going to say 30%. Then you multiply it by what? By this 1,000, of which we're going to save in calculation in terms of monetary form. This is going to be 0.3 times 1,000. And that means you're going to consume how much? 300 kwacha. So this 300 kwacha is how much you're going to do what? To spend on goods and services. That means you're going to consume it. Meaning, if you're consuming 300 kwacha, that means you are saving the rest of the money, meaning 700 is the money that you're going to do what? To save up. So to calculate it, this 70%, which is remaining as the amount of money that you're going to save, all you have to do is to say 70 over 100. Then we're going to say multiply by the 1,000. Then this will be 0.7 times 1,000, which should be able to give us a 70. So you can see that when you add up this 700 and this 300 kwacha, it gives us our total amount of money that we had in the beginning, which is this 1,000. Okay, so now when it comes to the MPC, you've seen this 30% that you've decided that you're going to spend on goods and services. This 30% right here is what is known as the MPC, called the marginal propensity to consume. So what is really by definition the marginal propensity to consume? I'd love you to write this. That the MPC, which is the marginal propensity to consume, is a percentage, okay? So it is a percentage or fraction, okay? Or fraction of extra income, okay? Or you can say additional income that is consumed. So that is consumed. Okay, this is what is known as the MPC. So we know that if we are consuming 30%, it means we're saving how much? If we're consuming 30%, that means we are saving what? 10%. We're saving 70%. So this 70% that we're deciding as a percentage that we're going to save is now what is known as the MPS, which is known as the marginal propensity to save. So the same definition as the MPC, but where there is now to consume, we're going to put to do what? To save. Okay, so that means when you get the MPC, which is 30% right here, in according to our example, and you get your MPS, which is 70%, you add them together, they're giving us what? 100%. So that means in terms of a number, remember we're converting this 30% into 0.3, right? And then we're converting our 70% into 0.7. So you can see in terms of a number, 0.3 plus 0.7 will give us what? 1, which gives birth now to this relationship between the MPS and the MPS, the MPC and the MPS, that MPC plus the MPS should always be equal to what? To 1. So this one represents the 100% converted into a number. Okay, so we have here known that the MPC plus MPS is equal to 1, meaning when you're given the MPS, you can easily find the MPC. When you're given the MPC, you can easily find what? The MPS. So that is how we see the relationship between the MPC and the MPS. So please always see that since this is marginal, so we're talking about additional income, okay? But that's the basic knowledge about the MPC. So, but the last thing that I'd love you to know about the MPC is that the MPC, remember when we are looking, when we're in grade 12, we are this X or Y plane, isn't it? Okay, I'm not so good at drawing, but hope you forgive me. So we had our x-axis, then we also had our y-axis. Then if you're looking at a straight line, let's say it starts from here, you have this straight line. You know that this straight line, so we've got our x and our y. Then we know that if we're asked to calculate the gradient, okay, if we have this equation, for example, a linear function is given by mx plus c, you know that this m stands for the what? For the gradient, isn't it? And you know that your how to calculate your gradient. We're calculating in grade 12, m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, right? Now here, the same principle, everything being the same, we are just going to change some variables. So where there is the x-axis now, here we're going to put something that is known as what? As our income. Okay, so if we have our income here, I'll talk about what is known as disposable income, but for now, let's just take it as income. Then in our y-axis here, I want us to have, we're going to replace our y-axis and put consumption there. Okay, so if we put consumption there, it means in order for us to calculate the gradient of this line, so wherever there is y here, we can see that it's now consumption, isn't it? So we can put C2, we can say this is the same as C2 minus what? C1. Then in the x-axis, what is there? It is income. Then income in economics is represented by y. So we're going to say y2 minus y1, therefore giving us that our m, the gradient, is equal to what? C2 minus C1 over y2 minus y1, right? As the gradient of this line. So now remember our consumption function, I gave to say it is equal to C is equal to A plus BYD. With this, YD is our income, which is disposable income. Like I said, I'll talk about it in details, but for now, let's just take it as income. So now this A is what it was our C right here. Remember the constant? Yes, that is the A. Then this B here is being represented is this M. What was our M in grade 12, which is the gradient. Then this YD now is our X, which is in the X-axis here as income. So you can see that this is just grade 12 work, the same thing that you had been doing. But now we have income, consumption, and now this gradient changing its name to be called now the marginal propensity to consume. So this B, okay, which is our MPC as I've defined it, the other definition for the MPC, as we have seen, is that the MPC is the slope, or the other name for slope is what? Gradient, isn't it? As you love it. It is the gradient of this consumption function. So the gradient of this line is known as the MPC. And how can you calculate it? The same way you used to calculate the gradient in grade 12. And you can see from right here that the change, okay, let me just erase this. If you want to calculate the change, okay, you know that this C2 minus C1 is just the same as, we can say that MPC is equal to the change in C, okay, consumption, as a result of a change in Y, which is our income right here. Then you know that this change, this symbol of change is the same thing that we used to do under differentiation. You can call this as dC over dy, because you know the d and change is just the same thing when it comes to looking at calculus, okay? And if you want to differentiate this function with respect to y, this is going to go, you're just going to remain with your what? Your b, which is just the same thing that I've been talking about, that the MPC is the gradient of the consumption function. Okay, so that is all about what what I wanted to share about, which is the MPC. In the next video, I'm going to talk about the consumption function. Then I'll also talk about the autonomous consumption in a bit in details. So thank you so much for having joined in. My name is Duncan, and I'll see you all in the next video.